Hello, everybody. We just heard from our keynote sponsors, HP, Ricoh, and Xerox. It was great to hear from them. And now we're going to actually transition a little bit and hear from some of their customers. So with that, I would like to introduce Barb Pello, who is going to be leading this keynote user panel. Barb Pello, take it away.
Well, thank you, David. And we're going to talk about how to add value in challenging times with Inkjet. You know, as Inkjet technology becomes more prevalent in the market, service providers need to evaluate how to differentiate themselves from the competition. Turnaround time, quality, and affordability have truly become table stakes. In the face of this current pandemic, differentiation has taken on a whole new meaning. What you're going to find is that you're going to have to help deliver demonstrable results to your customers. It means that you're going to have to work with them to place special emphasis on design and cross-channel capabilities to enhance digital print. You're going to have to show them how you influence results and how you can help them drive customer interaction. I have three esteemed panelists today, and they're going to talk about how they're embodying Inkjet to streamline operations in light of current economic conditions. They're also going to talk a lot about the value-added services that they're offering to customers in both B2B and B2C environments. They'll talk about how they're helping their clients enhance response rates, improve time to market, and impact overall bottom line profitability. So I've got Kirk Schlecker, the president of Heeter, Adam Averick, president of Design Distributor, and Steve Priestman, who's a manager of printing and publications at Omaha Public Schools. And I'm going to start with Kirk. Kirk, let's talk a little bit about Heeter and the background and your business at Heeter.
We are a commercial printer located just outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We are a 75-plus-year-old business, family-owned. We've got about 100 employees, plus or minus 20 to 80 temporaries that we bring on seasonally or as we need when we get busier. We started as a commercial printer, and we have migrated ourselves into focusing on technologies, whether they're digital or inkjet web. Lots and lots of digital print goes through our shop, as well as a fair amount of offset and fulfillment.
Great, Kirk. Now, can you talk? Oh, I'm sorry, Kirk, go ahead.
Yeah, we've got sales are about $30 million a year, and we do lots of good programs for our customers.
Great. Now, tell everybody about the industries that you primarily focus on, Kirk.
So we focus on basically anything that comes our way that can be programmatized, but we've been having a lot of good experience in the insurance sectors, in the gaming sectors, where we do a lot of work for different casinos. The retail has been great for us as of late. And then pharmaceutical is a long-standing. We've got a couple customers that are pharmaceutical businesses that have long-standing relationships with us. And then education is starting to get stronger for us as we added the Inkjet Web, and we can do lots and lots of books, short run, not typically found in a commercial shop, more so in a web shop.
Now, you've been at this Inkjet game for quite a while. Could you share with the group the journey that you've taken with Inkjet?
Yeah, so in 2015, we purchased the Ricoh VC70000, and we did that specifically because we had an insurance company that had a lot of direct mail as well as personalized enrollment books that they needed printed in a very short period of time. We had a couple Indigos internally and an iGen that we were running it on, and we were also outsourcing quite a bit during that short period of time in the fall. So we knew that we were going to have to do something, whether it was outsource more or buy more cut sheet equipment. And then Ricoh came in with a sample folder that we didn't believe was printed inkjet because the quality was kind of as good as what you would see typically off of an iGen. They validated it. We ran some test jobs, and then just a few months later, we're out in Boulder watching it run, and then a few months after that, we bought it. From there, a few years later, we were the beta site for the VC70000. So we got a lot of good time with it, as well as running our VC60000. We pulled the plug in March of 2019 to replace the 60,000 with the 70,000. So that was significant for us. And the value of that was that we no longer had to deal with Mitsubishi coated stocks that were hard to get, difficult to fold. And the pre-treated paper is no longer an issue for us because the 70,000 runs on just regular offset stock.
Okay. Now, go ahead. Keep going.
And then the speeds on coated stock was a significant change as well. So typically we were on the Mitsubishis, we would run 160 feet a minute. Now we're running 400 feet a minute. So that's a major change. And then the pricing is significantly different with regards to the paper.
Okay. And so what it's doing is, and you brought this up when I chatted with you earlier, but it's really making you competitive with some of those analog web shops.
It is. And, it's a difficult business environment right now, and we don't see that changing. We are able to differentiate ourselves by just offering things that other shops can't do with the variability and the short run capabilities that we have.
And so you put a lot of emphasis on the services side of the business as well. What kind of end-to-end solutions are you providing? What are your customers expecting these days?
So we have a nice suite of products that we offer, and we've created a dashboard type solution where it's a collaboration suite where our customers come into our site, single sign on from their corporate domains, and then come into our site, and they don't have to enter a password or anything. They're just in, and they're available to see all the products that we offer from a digital side of things. So whether a customer just wants fulfillment, whether it's pick pack or print on demand, we've got solutions for them to use. We've got reporting, dynamic reporting, we've got mail tracking, we've got proof approval, we've got some automation solutions embedded within that. What we try to do is work on behalf of our customer to make their workflow simpler. And with the technology offerings that we have, we tend to sell more with the technology, and by default, we get the offset and the digital and the fulfillment.
Okay. And just a comment, because I thought this is kind of interesting. You actually have a brand name, and it's Imperium. Right. What's the importance of the branding for you guys?
So the focus is creating a package to where a customer will understand what they're getting into. So it's almost like productizing what we have. And it's difficult to productize something that's virtual, but it also allows us to deliver the message via marketing and face-to-face sales. But that's where Imperium came from. It's a productized offering of a collaboration suite that our customers get to pick and choose the different services that we offer and the integrations that we have with them.
Okay.
And that's really the key of it is as soon as we can get integrated with a customer, it's difficult for them to leave us. I mean, that's really the gist of it.
Okay. And for you guys, this concept of adding value, what has it meant for your business?
It means that we get a lot more work that is brought to us through the procurement chain and not just the marketing side of the business, which I place tremendous value in. I enjoy talking with the marketing folks, but much more work year over year comes from the procurement side where you do something good or you do something well for the marketing folks, and the procurement folks get that feedback and they bring you down the hall to another organization, whether it's a sales organization, whether it's an operations organization, somebody that has a need. So we see there's a ton of value in selling solutions that are more programmatic, and whether they're turnkey or you've got to build them something that they pay for, there's just a lot of value in building the relationship and then customizing the solution to them.
Okay. And that's, you told me, I think earlier, that's helped you really in terms of getting work under contract for your business as well.
Yeah, that's really what we look for these days. Years ago, some of our sales folks were very intimidated by RFPs, as well as they didn't want to get siloed into having to work out a contract with the customer. And now they realize that whole type of process, or that process, is usually their best friend, because we've got a lot of technology, some folks within the IT side that can help them sell it, where typical sales folks don't always understand the inner workings of the solutions, but the IT folks can certainly talk IT to the larger organizations' IT folks, so that makes it easier. Salesperson doesn't have to be the expert in SSO and SAML. Our IT folks are there for them.
Okay. Now, given that you've been at this game for a long time, what recommendation? There's a lot of people obviously in the audience that are just going to get started on their journey with Inkjet. You've been around and been at it for almost 5 years. What recommendations would you make for peers that are just getting started down this path?
I think you need to choose a vendor that has just as much risk at the endeavor as you do. So you certainly got to trust your partner that you're going into business with. There's a lot of incremental costs that you might not see out of the box, and you got to understand those up front. Otherwise, it can be detrimental. Ink usage, ink percentage, paper waste, all those things add up, and they can make a job go bad real quick. So trusting the partner, being a sponge, and get the resources with your vendor, or get in front of the resources with your vendor, is very important. I would say there's a lot of investment downstream that people will have to consider. We actually, right now, we're installing another finishing line that's going to create 6,000 saddle stitch books an hour, which we didn't have previously. So that's going to be roll to saddle stitch booklet. So we're constantly looking at other ancillary solutions in the finishing side. We've got color locked down, so our press is G7 certified, which is fantastic. And we also have camera systems that are within the press and the finishing lines that's going to interrogate what we're printing and validate that what we printed is actually going to get finished, and then gives us reporting that we can show the audit trail to the customer. So that kind of relieves the critical criteria that the customers typically have.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's great insight. I have one other quick question, and that's, what did you do in terms of educating both your employees and your customers as you changed out technology?
That's a challenge, because typically the sales force is not able to keep up with the changes in technology. So we've really focused on a team sales approach. And we do lunch and learns with the customers. We do lunch and learns with the sales folks. We have certain sales folks that are interested in keeping up with the technology. They go out to events. Sometimes Ricoh would host a marketing event in Boulder. We have our sales folks bring a customer along so they can collaborate and understand what the solutions are, and how they can relate them to their own business. But yeah, this is a technology sell these days, and you're building a long-term relationship that's based on IT solutions. And that's difficult for the typical print salesperson to get. but with a team approach, we can get through it.
Great. Well, thanks for the insight, Kirk. And now we're going to shift gears, and I'm going to turn it over to Adam at Design Distributors. Adam, why don't you tell us a little bit about your company?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Well, Design Distributors started out in 1966 as a family business by my uncle and my father. They were in the envelope business, and I came aboard full-time in the late 80s, at which point, after a couple of years, I started to expand into areas outside of the traditional envelope business. So they were an envelope jobber. We expanded into non-heat set web, little sheet fed, and then in 93, we expanded to full service direct mail. So at that point, we moved into the new facility in 97, and that's when we really blew it out to handle full service data processing, imaging, and mailing. Design operates out of two facilities: a 70,000 square foot facility where all our automatic and our printing, imaging, and mailing is done, and then 50,000 square feet across the street where all of our hand assembly, kitting, and contract packaging is done.
Okay, great. And talk us a little bit about the types of companies that you're working with today.
Well, the nice thing about what we have at DDI is we have a pretty broad spectrum of clients. We have some people in the pharmaceutical and healthcare area. We have people in the financial services area, and we have a fair amount of business in retail. In addition to that, we have a sprinkling of just about everything: a little nonprofit, a little B2B and B2C, and smaller clients, and a little bit of insurance work.
Now, beyond obviously doing an amazing job at printing, what kinds of services do you offer to your customer base in terms of adding value to that printed piece?
Well, as you know, to build on what Kurt is doing over at Heeter, we started out as a traditional printing and mailing facility. And with the addition of large amounts of IT infrastructure, our simple data processing has turned into a lot more complicated work. Whether you use programmatic or trigger mailings, where clients have a specific event. It could be an expiration of a policy. It could be a birthday. It could be a lease ending for an automobile. There's something that triggers an event. And by automating that process and receiving data on a regular basis, we're now sending out product on a regular basis, whether it could be weekly, daily, monthly, to enhance the sales and marketing aspects of a trigger product. So we are doing a lot of programmatic mailings, a lot of trigger mailings. We are doing a lot of on-demand literature fulfillment and kitting as well.
Now, you're relatively not quite have not quite been as long as Kirk, but talk a little bit about your Inkjet implementation and your experience to date.
Well, the implementation for us was a year-long process. Just the investigating of the product itself. First, we met with a variety of people that we felt had a presence in the marketplace and may be viable for us. Then what we did was we came up with about 5 flavors of ice cream, which were the various average types of work that we anticipated doing in that area. And we created test files and sent them out to 5 people. Then those 5 manufacturers with common paper and with the common files all sent back to us test files, and we evaluated them with our team inside. And that team included pre-press people, data processing people, print production people. One of the nice things, and the same thing, similar to what Kurt evolved, is that from a commercial printer, we understand ink on paper, we understand color. So migration towards toner was relatively simple. Inkjet was a little more complicated, but the process was there. So we did our evaluations, then narrowed down the field after the testing, and then we did some serious negotiations, came to a conclusion, and we went with HP. That's one of the reasons. One of the reasons we went with HP was the fact that they had They had offered us the opportunity of running untreated stocks, as opposed to, at that particular time, none of the other machines did. We could run up to 9-point gloss-coated cover. We were never tied to treated papers, which was a big deal. And our speeds were running 250 to 500 feet a minute, depending upon the work, which was excellent. In addition to that, our consumables we felt were reasonably priced for, against the competition.
Now, we talked a little bit about this earlier, but what were the drivers? What made you say, hey, I've got to move from toner to inkjet, and now is the time?
Well, a couple things. The first and foremost was the quality factor. The threshold of what we used to deem as traditional inkjet work was really transactional. It was invoicing, it was billing. The quality level would never have been acceptable to our clients. And our clients, quite honestly, most of them are agency-driven clients, so their expectations are a bit higher than normal transactional work. So what we started to see, and we've watched for years. I've watched inkjet from way back in the old Cytex days, and I've watched it evolve, just like I watched toner evolve. When we started to see two things: quality being acceptable to the work we do, and the threshold of the cost coming down, because the balance of the cost of the machine and the consumables, yin yang, it's a seesaw. And what we saw was that it finally looked that it would be affordable. And there were certain amounts of work that we were running conventionally that we could convert to inkjet digital. And that's before we got into the full excitement of full variability. We're talking about good size runs, not very long, but the couple of 100,000 to 500,000, 600,000, 700,000 pieces with six or eight lots, which we now could run as one zip string if the rest of the components were common. And then we could take a look at those and say, hey, wait, we can do that inkjet. One of the cool things about inkjet on a lot of the systems, as opposed to toner, is that the consistency of color is amazing. I mean, when we start a roll at the core to the end of that roll, that image looks the same, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Now, one other just quick thing was, what about the customer demand side? I mean, that's clearly a driver for everybody, but what are you seeing from a customer perspective relative to what they want and what inkjet fulfills?
Well, first of all, they want the ability to do more. They want more versatility. They want to be able to start taking a look at their database, which is more in depth than it ever was before, and start to utilize some of the data points within that database. It could be things like imagery, very simple, or geography. Why send a mail piece of a mountain range to somebody in Miami, or vice versa? Why would you send a beach shot to somebody in Chicago? So your imagery can change, your geography can change, your socioeconomics can change. There's so many different things, and that's before you dig into real deep marketing points, which is the different types of, if it's a catalog company, the different types of products that they have purchased for a repurchase of something or something that's similar to it. Cars, upgrading, there's so many. It's endless. It's endless with basic data that over the last 5 years, people have realized they need to capture everything. When you go back 10 years ago, we would talk to clients and we would say, what can you tell us about this client? And they would say to us, well, we could tell you their name and their address. Yeah. Well, now they could tell us what they bought, how they bought, when they bought. They could tell us a whole slew of pieces of information that they never captured before. And with that, you can start to maximize the variability in color based upon what their target points are, what their data points are.
Great. Now, we talked, and you mentioned earlier the evaluation process that you went through and the importance of getting them to do samples and quality. But there was one other issue that you brought up that we chatted about, and that was the upgradability. Could you spend a minute talking about that concept and why you felt that HP was a good choice for you given upgradability?
Absolutely. It's an excellent point and was one of the driving factors in our decision making. We are not, we're a $20 million company. We are not a $200 million company. We don't anticipate having a fleet, although it would be nice, but we don't anticipate having a fleet of inkjet equipment. So the ability of technology changing rapidly, as we all know. You take a computer out of a box, by the time you plug it in, it's already outdated. The ability of upgrading equipment, especially electronic upgrades or simple forklift upgrades, was incredible for us. When you go backwards 20 years, let's say 10 years, and you look at the HP equipment, every increase in technology, whether it be speed or quality or front end, the digital front end, anything that they have done to upgrade and move faster, quicker, and better has been able to be upgraded to the current equipment that you have. So we do not anticipate taking that machine out and putting in the next model. We anticipate being able to move certain things around, pull certain heads out. In fact, there's an upgrade out announced recently. We have a 240. They are increasing the new model to the 250. The 250 will actually remove things like the pre-coder, and it has a new ink set, and will enable brighter colors. I think they're calling it brilliant color. But when we're ready to upgrade, they're just going to come in, remove the heads, change out the ink system, and we're now upgraded to the next level. So it was a major driving force, and it was something very important to us.
Great. Now, the pandemic has clearly impacted everybody on this call, as well as all the people in the audience. Talk to us a little bit about what steps you took as part of the pandemic, Adam.
Well, being located in New York, we had the most amount of fun in the beginning. So we started out. We started out with our governor taking the manufacturing facilities in New York from 25% to 50% to 75% to 100%, all within 3 days. We filed with New York State for the day that they hit 100%, and that was on a Friday. And then Saturday morning, we had received certification for being an essential manufacturer. So we never stopped through the process. That was a good thing. I would say customer confidence was probably the key throughout the process. We went through a variety of speed bumps. We had illnesses, we had people in, we had people out, we had processes in place, we had procedures. We followed each and every one of them. We were hard, fast on our rules. But on the other hand, because of the team we have here, we were able to maintain all of our delivery dates. We did not miss one date in all that period of time. Some of it wasn't easy. I did call and ask for some extensions, but in general, we kept to our dates, and that built a confidence level with our clients. And one of the ways we were able to do that and spin on a dime was relying a little less on conventional and a little more on digital, because it takes a step out of the process. If I'm going to take a piece of paper, print a shell, then I'm going to laser that shell and put it through bindery and insert it. That's another process. Now I can take a blank roll of paper, I can image it fully digitally, image it and put the color on at the same time, then go right through the process. So I'm saving steps, I'm saving quality control, I'm saving proofing, and I'm able to take a big chunk of the time out of the system. Cost factor aside, because sometimes, depending upon what it is, the cost is a little more money. But timing was critical during this entire process. We also received the PPP product, so we did receive funds. That helped us out a lot because we were working through the entire process, so we were able to utilize those funds immediately, as opposed to other people who were shut down or had a reduced work staff. So, in fact, we were trying to get more people in. We were trying to work a lot extra hours to keep going through the process. Yeah. As far as our clients were concerned, certain clients stopped mailing. I mean, they just if you were a retail operation and you did not have a online segment, you didn't mail. But healthcare kept mailing. Some of our telecommunications kept mailing. Financial services, it depended. It really depended on what the product line was. If we were doing a merchant finance program, well, there really weren't any on the street merchants right then at that point. So those programs kind of got put on hold. But we did a lot of dancing in the beginning. And I think that during the process, there were some opportunities that came out. For example, we are working on a large healthcare program for a couple of million masks that are being sent out. We're ready to go. We're in place. We have everything set, set to happen. And believe it or not, the holdup and the start and stop were the ability to get the materials into the country through customs to us. So we get 100,000 or 200,000 at a time, grind through those, and then we'll be waiting for a week to get going. So there are some opportunities that have come through. On the commercial side, there's a lot of signage for retail. There have been some great stories of a lot of our fellow printers and mailers who have cut shields and made masks and done all kinds of things, and have changed their shops around, which has been very encouraging and very refreshing for an industry that doesn't get a lot of respect sometimes. That was pretty good.
Now, talk to us a little bit about the biggest challenges you had, given that you're relatively new. But talk to us about the challenges you had relative to the implementation process.
Well, the first is reputation. As I mentioned before, people's concept of what Inkjet was what they saw on their phone bill, not what the quality of the work that we were putting out. So we spent more time educating our clients as to what the possibilities were and what the quality was. I think I'd also mentioned that a lot of our clients are agency clients, and so even if they work directly for the end consumer, a lot of times the agency is involved in the project and the process. So they would hear the phrase Inkjet and they would say, no, got to go through a printing press. No, got to do it. And we invested a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort, because we were running certain jobs conventionally where I would say, that's going to work digitally, on an Inkjet system. Let's run some pieces and show them side by side. Even if we ran the job conventionally, we still showed it to them digitally and said, hey, look, and not only that, here are the 10 things you can do with this that you can't do this way. A lot of testing, a lot of variability, changing imagery, changing price points, adding color in people's names, all these different options, they increase your response rates. I mean, it's factual. You can see study after study that color variability increases your response rate. And if you could do it at the same price, hey, why not? Even if it's a little more, you check your ROI and you can prove it out.
Okay, great. And last but not least, as you think about the peers in the industry that are listening to you right now, what recommendations would you make for them? Well,
first and foremost, we're a lot of us are very involved with what we're doing. A lot of us have very little time, but if you're sitting on the train or you're sitting in the car or you're staring up at the ceiling at 3 o'clock in the morning, think about where your company is going to be, or where you'd like it to be, or you think it's going to be 3 years from now. And I'm not big into 1, 3, 5, 10-year plans. I'm just saying 3 years from now, is every one of your competitors going to be in this technology? And if they are, don't you need to be?
Yeah.
Because this really is the future of where our business is going. You can tell by how many 40-inch 6-color presses they're selling every year. I'm in the, I've got 2 forms presses, 8 and 10 color forms presses. If I wanted to replace those presses now, I have a hard time finding a manufacturer who's going to make a forms press.
Yeah.
And yet we have a half a dozen people investing millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars in inkjet technology, fighting over each other and stepping over each other and kicking each other every day. And when you look at the technology and you look at where the drive is and look at where the world is going, if you're going to be there then, you got to be looking at it real hard now.
Okay.
Also, besides the technology, it's the people. The quality of people that it takes to go out today and find a pressman, a trained pressman, or to train a pressman, to find somebody who wants to run a printing press, is very, very challenging. It is very difficult to get that next generation of people to run printing equipment.
Yeah.
It's much different on the digital side. The technology allows you a lot more. It's a lot more pressure on the technology than there is on the person, and the intuitiveness and the technology. And it's a lot, people take a look at a piece of equipment as opposed to a printing press coming in, and they're really excited about a digital machine because they say, they see that's where it's going. So it's more, it's really important to try to figure out, where your people are going to be coming from.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks a bunch, Adam. And now what I'm going to do is we're going to shift gears even a little bit more. And I've got Steve Priestman with us, and he manages the printing and publications function at Omaha Public Schools, which I know has got a lot going on right now relative to, do I reopen or don't I reopen? Why don't you tell us, Steve, a little bit about your organization and how you service Omaha Public Schools?
Well, yes, we have roughly 54,000 students and about 8,000 employees, ranging from, teachers, classroom teachers, principals, secretaries, nutrition service staff, the whole gamut. We are the urban school district in Omaha. My department is responsible for all printing and mail services is the name. It's not a insertion kind of facility. It's postage metering and sorting the interoffice mail. That's also part of our area. Mm-hmm. And I've got 17 people and one part-timer. A typical year, which I don't know if anything is typical anymore, but a typical year we'll have 35,000 orders. And now an order could be, I want 10 copies of one original. Or an order could be, I need 3,500 copies of a 64-page plus cover, saddle stitch book. They're all individual orders. Probably, roughly 70% of what we're doing is for typical classroom. Okay. And that is traditionally, worksheets, unit tests, typical things that your average teacher is using. And that's where we started wanting to make some changes. And we realized our days with offset might be numbered. We had both digital and offset, large operation, and we decided down the road, I may not be able to find small offset equipment. We use, perfectors, Ryobi perfectors, and they were just great workhorses, 12 by 18, and over the years, we probably had 6 or 8 of them through the shop, usually two at a time. And they really were, excuse me, great machines. But the manufacturer started reducing their product line. They actually dropped that line of the 12 by 18. Enough of their customers, including myself, started screaming at them. They changed their mind and they cut some models, but they still supported that line. But that told me at some point, it's probably going to happen again. Yeah. Staffing is the other issue. I had no problem. I have well-qualified offset operators, but should I come to the needing a replacement, the community colleges in the Metro Omaha area are not teaching offset printing. They're not teaching bindery. We would probably struggle finding staff. So that started me on the journey. And then as you can see, in 2018, we put in Xerox Brenva. And at that time, we still had toner-based monochrome equipment and toner-based color equipment, but all offset went out the door. And that worked just beautifully for us. The issue that we soon ran into was the Brenva really couldn't handle the volume because everybody wanted color. One of the things we chose to do, and it was really a marketing tool that I used, I prepared a mailer that was an actual item that was printed and mailed to parents of about 6 schools This would have been in 2018. It was announcing in a big back to school event. And so that was a live job. We printed it, mailed it, everything's fine. Then after that, I printed more of that. And that one, I printed it on the Brenva. I printed it on the Versant, which was our toner-based color device. And I also printed it on the Nuvera, which was our monochrome device, toner-based device. I sent a sample of each with a cover memo to every principal and department head and explained our new concept. That new concept is what we called everyday color or prestige color. Now, in reality, everyday color meant Brenva, prestige color meant Versant. My customers are not printers. They're not printing savvy. They may be the most wonderful classroom teacher in the world. They just know, I want this thing in my hands copied. So we chose to use the everyday color or prestige color. And one of the reasons we promoted everyday color over prestige is the cost was virtually identical. Whether it was monochrome or everyday color. What we wanted is our students, an elementary student, would no longer have a worksheet with one shade of gray for the sky, another shade of gray for the grass. It could be green grass and blue sky. And we all know color improves comprehension. I don't think there's really any debate about that. The drawback of color has traditionally been the added cost. And so that's a judgment that the person wanting the printing has to make. You know, do I have the budget for this in color? Do I not? You know, is color really improve the comprehension, or is the color, you know, a red apple in the corner of the page? You know, I used to have those conversations with people as they would submit something and make sure they were aware, okay, I understand you want color on this, but are you aware of the cost? And I would explain the cost of color, doing it the old way, toner-based, or doing it, you know, on everyday color. Without question, everyone said, I want the everyday color. And so we started having bottlenecks. I had so much demand on the Brenva, and we would be running it, you know, maybe some months, 2.5 to 3 million, 3.5 million clicks in that month. And suddenly there's more work than I can get done. So that's what started us down the next path. And we added Baltoro this last March. And that's the point where I got rid of the monochrome toner and the color toner. So my two devices are Brenva Inkjet and Baltoro Inkjet. So we went with the Baltoro. I mean, number one, Brenva was no longer being marketed. The Baltoro is a wonderful improvement over the Brenva. But the Baltoro also has a few more bells and whistles. There's more variety on paper stock. I now can have a matte finish or silk finish coated stock, whereas I couldn't on the Brenva. And that allowed us really to make this transition, you know, very, very effectively. And as it happens, I know we're going to probably talk about pandemic in a minute, but I'm thinking of this during the training. And we had a Xerox trainer in our shop for the Baltoro. That was the week that last March when everything sort of blew up in this country. And suddenly I had millions of pages of packets that had to be printed and taken to schools for parents to come by. Let's say, you know, on Monday morning, you can get your student's packet. For secondary level, we had pretty good online education. We didn't have anything elementary. We didn't have devices for the elementary. So, I mean, we ran, you know, 24/7, you know, for several days, about, you know, and we did, you know, all of the work that was needed for the first 2 weeks. I did outsource a portion of that just because I couldn't get it all done in the amount of time. And that was the fortunate thing. After about a day and a half of the Brenva or Baltoro training, we were in production. So we got this done. And the wonderful thing for us is we had the comparison of cost. The outsourcing was about, the internal was a third of the cost of outsourcing. And that outsourced vendor wasn't gouging us. That was a fair price for what I asked them to do. The difference was the technology. They were toner-based. I was Inkjet.
Okay. Now, talk a little bit about, and you mentioned this earlier, but talk a little bit about the value that you're delivering by really providing that affordable color for the students.
Well, as we know, color improves comprehension, but I'll bet none of the people who are watching this will go out and buy a black and white TV today. That's not the world we live in. And we want our students to have the materials in their hands that are in color. Now, sometimes it is, as I said before, a red apple in the corner, but most of the time it does make a big difference on comprehension. I've seen some wonderful packets that, they attract attention. They keep especially a young student's interest. And that's the key. We want them to be learning. And if it's maybe a little bit more appealing what they're looking at, they will indeed learn more.
Okay, great. Now, we've got a lot of implants in the audience right now. Talk a little bit about what recommendations you'd make for the folks in the audience, especially those that are in your shoes as an implant manager.
Well, sure. I think one of the issues that we're all facing, whether we're still buying equipment or evaluating or we've already done it, there are differences in technology between the various manufacturers, and you need to look at what the finished product that the machine will do that matches your needs. I don't have a need. I am not printing for an advertising agency, which may have a little bit different expectation than my customers who are teachers, parents of the students. So look for the equipment that will handle the vast majority of your work. Don't expect to find one piece of equipment that, number one, is affordable to you, number two, will handle 100% of your work, because that's probably not out there. Find something that matches your products, and then deal with those exceptions in another way, whether maybe you're outsourcing that, or maybe you have a smaller device for those small percentages.
Okay. Well, great. Well, first, I want to take a second to thank all three of our panelists. But I think what you heard from everybody were some common themes, which is understand your current business, the potential page volume for that inkjet investment. All of you did some form of a cost-benefit ROI analysis, each coming from a different perspective, whether it was eliminating toner and offset equipment, displacing toner equipment, or adding new work that would logically fit on an inkjet press. I think you all understand, and you did a great job at understanding the needs of your customer base and market trends. And you're all looking at, how do I add value to my respective organization or my customers? Kirk probably summed it up the best when he talked about, really leveraging that vendor insight. But I know that all three of you did that. And you made the vendors illustrate the quality that would meet your customers' expectations. I know that you all talked to other users of technology and, oh, by the way, engaged your people as you went through that decision-making process. So that's a little bit of backdrop, and I would tell everybody to take heart and make sure that you think about the lessons that these three gentlemen have been through. With that as a backdrop, if there's any questions, please let us know. And I am going to turn it back over to Dave Pesco.
Thanks a lot, Barb, and thanks a lot to all the panelists. That was a great session. That was a great opening day, by the way. We got to hear from Marco, the conference chair. We got to hear from our keynote sponsor executives, as well as some of their top customers here. So just to close things out, we are starting back up tomorrow. That's day 2. So that is on Tuesday. We'll be starting back up at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So thank you very much for everyone joining, and we'll see you tomorrow.